Hey guys, what's up? This is Pants Art Dragon, and today we'll be doing the patch 5.17 rundown of the changes. So I just got home from PAX, and that's why this video is coming out kind of late from what it should be going from, and we're going to be doing this fairly quick. So yeah, it won't be a really in-depth analysis. It'll be more like hey, what's going on here and where is he going to be. Anyways, with all that being said, let's get started. So Azir, base movement speed is going down. That means his roaming kind of sucks more, and walking back to lane, and in general it will hurt his win rate a lot, so I don't think he's going to be that great anymore with other nerfs coming to him. Like how his Q doesn't do additional damage if another soldier hits it, so he won't be doing as much damage as he did before in certain cases. And now Sand Soldiers work with Sacred Devour, but you won't be seeing that. You'll only be seeing like normals from like someone like me, and some bug fixes that indirectly nerf him. So you probably will see him in the competitive scene, but I don't think he'll be in like my tier list anymore as an honorable mention. Next up is going to be Bard, so just some minor buffs to him. Just a little bit more utility, nothing too big, and you know, W being less mana at all ranks, that's good for mid game. He'll probably see more play, but nothing too big. Next up is Darius, and he got hotfixed earlier in the last patch, so that hotfix actually helped him a lot, and he's actually a really good top laner at the moment. And now they're just making his laning phase a bit easier with the W changes, right as you see here. There's also a new element of surprise where you can wind up your Q and flash onto targets now, which is actually helpful in a lot of scenarios. So you definitely see him in my top 5 best top laners for sure. Next up is Draven, and as you can see here, he gets 2 bonus stacks of Adoration if he kills 6 minions in a row without dropping an axe, which is obviously a little small buff. But I think the biggest thing, at least for solo queue, is that since his team will be notified for getting 150 stacks or whatever, they'll have this notification that says, I need to gank this lane to get this guy fed. So if you're facing a Draven and he gets 150 stacks, expect like the jungler to come around your lane and try and gank you. So yeah, just a little bit more psychological warfare in that sense. Next up we have Fizz, and AP ratios are going a bit higher while some base damage is going down, and his R no longer amplifies physical damage for Fizz. What does this mean? It means AP Fizz is going to be much more stronger, while top lane AD Fizz and Triforce is not going to be good anymore. So yeah, you'll probably just see a lot more mid Fizz, but maybe the base damage on his W may have been a bit more impactful than I thought, and he won't be good in general anymore. Next up is going to be Gangplank, and right here, there are nerfs coming to his E, like the armor penetration. Sure, that's kind of fine, the numbers is like pretty big, but the cast time onto his E, that's going to be very, very impactful. Like the cast time on Nidalee's Q, that was only 0.125. This is double of that, so when you're team fighting, when you're like playing in the top lane, your enemy is going to have more reaction time than he had before. And plus, when you're doing the dominoes with the barrels, there's obviously going to be a lot more delay, so it's not going to come out as fast as it did before. And I honestly think this nerf is actually going to hurt him a lot. But he still has wave clear with this ability, so maybe not. So next up is going to be Garen, and he's receiving some nerfs in this patch. So base movement speed is going down, which means his Q and Black Cleaver won't be increasing his movement speed as much anymore. But his R's tooltip is much more easier to understand, so now you have a better estimate of how much damage you're going to do onto an enemy when you use your ultimate. So it's like a slight buff in a sense if you didn't know how much damage your ultimate did before, but in general just small movement speed nerfs. Next up is going to be Gragas, and his W's damage is getting nerfed. So he still has the base damage, which still goes up by 30 per level, and you'll still be maxing out this ability since it just scales really well. But now of course there's just a little bit less damage, and honestly he was like falling off flavor already, so I'm not sure why they did this nerf anyways. But honestly, like, I don't play him, but other people do, but I don't think they'll play him anymore. Next up is Janna, so her passive got a bug fix, which is an indirect nerf. Q's minimum range goes down by 250. Which is actually kind of big, but it's still the same range if you target it fully. And the AP ratio on her ultimate goes down by 0.3, which isn't too big, as the utility in that ultimate is still strong, and I don't think you really built AP on Janna anyways, unless you were going the Magi Soul Stealer and Zeke's Harbinger, which of course are sometimes really good items on her. But the minimum range on her Q, I do feel like it's a pretty big nerf in a sense. Like, you'll feel it, but I feel like in the laning phase it'll still do its job and like block Leona from initiating onto your AD carry. Just like in team fights, you probably won't knock up as many people as it did before. She will probably be number 1, or like maybe goes to number 2 or something like that. Next up at level 1, Jax's mana cost for his E is going down to 50 instead of 70, so this just means better laning phase in general. I would say it helps him a lot, since 70 mana versus 50, especially in the early game, is a lot. But since it's only like a mana cost buff and not like a damage increase buff, it's not that impactful, so he's probably still not going to be in the top lane tier list. Alright, so next up is going to be Kalista, and her laning phase is getting hit a bit. As you can see, the passive damage is going down by 2% because, you leave this at level 1, and you can't practice passive as much as you could before. Also, now you can kill her support more since the cooldown of her ultimate is now 120 instead of 90 seconds. Is she still going to be good? I think she's going to be maybe an honorable mention or top 5 still, but one of Kalista's strengths is her laning phase, so this actually might hurt her a lot. Next up is going to be Lux, and she's receiving some buffs to her Q. Mana cost goes down, although I'd preferably have this on her E, and it doesn't matter in an early game because you max out E anyways. But now, Light Binding does 100% of its root and damage to the secondary target, which is actually really good for team fights, and it actually helps her laning phase since you can hit a minion, and if an enemy is behind that minion, you'll do full damage. Probably not top 5, maybe an honorable mention, but she's just like a decent champion right now. With these buffs, they obviously help her mid-game team fight, but there's also better mid laners at the moment. Next up, Karma gets a buff, and she's being played a lot in the support lane at the moment. And what this buff does is help her laning phase, but it doesn't matter in the mid game and late game since you max this out second. Either way, it's a small buff, so don't look too into it. Next up is going to be Maokai, and his ultimate cooldown is going up by 20 seconds at all levels. And I do feel like this hurts his laning phase a lot more than anything. As for team fights, it'll probably only be up once, but at least for the laning phase, when you go for that all in, you can activate your ultimate and trade with a lot of people. So with this spell going up by 20 seconds on cooldown, that's going to be hurting his laning phase after level 6 a lot, in my opinion. Although of course you can still play safe and just be like this tank who appears in the mid game and late game, but it'll definitely hurt him a bit. Next up is going to be Master Yi, and this bug fix on his Q is going to be worth noting since it's really interesting. As you can see, the double strike from his passive and the phantom hit will now reduce the cooldown of his alpha strike. And so this buff is actually really huge in my opinion. If he keeps auto attacking someone, he'll just basically be queuing all day and have this nice AoE damage plus invincibility frame. So once he does get that Sage Devour, he's just going to be super strong. But he still has his problems like his early game, and before getting the Sage Devour and some core items, he's not that useful. So it could go both ways, but obviously this helps him a lot. Next up is going to be Nocturne, and as you can see, the range of his R is increased by 500 at all ranks. This is actually really good, especially for level 6 early game, as now he can get his ganks off better and sooner, and his counter ganks are going to be strong, and these are some nice buffs, but I still feel like there are better junglers at the moment. Next up is going to be Pantheon, and base attack speed is going up. That's really good because his auto attacks felt really sluggish, and now he can get his passive out more. And I like him as a jungler at the moment, so with this buff coming back in, I'm definitely going to play him a bit more. Next up is going to be Rek'Sai, and I never knew this passive actually had this, but as you can see, now she can not generate as much Fury as she did before, which means her early game sustain isn't as great as it was before, and in ganks, her E isn't going to do as much damage as it did before. But it doesn't hurt too much, so she's definitely still going to be good. So next up is going to be Shen. So Shen is more of a top laner than support, and as you can see, just some sustain nerfs coming to him, which kind of sucks, but I still think he's going to be really good, at least for competitive play, since his ultimate is on a lower cooldown and a bunch of buffs that came to him recently. Next up is going to be Tahm Kench, and he's receiving little buffs, and a lot of people are trying to play him in the top lane, but I actually think he's a jungler, because this one game some guy played Tahm Kench in Master Challenger ELO, and he surprised me because he was doing really well. And with these buffs coming in along with the recent buffs he had, I feel like he's in a good place at the moment. Next up is going to be Vi, and right here Blast Shield is going down by 1 second per level, instead of check stops at level 7 and 12. Helps early game, but it's not too big. Next up is just going to be some bug fixes to Zed. Everything here I've never seen before, except for the W, and they're kind of fixing that bug, so it's kind of dumb because it was kind of a cool trick to do for advanced Zed players, but I think overall all these bug fixes do kind of help them. But they're all case scenarios, so it's not like big buff. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. I do apologize on how late I released this video and how short it is, but I hope you guys enjoyed my insight, and I'll see you guys next time.